Welcome back, family. This week we have the absolute pleasure to introduce you to a brother that has really inspired us. It's easy to talk about what we would do or would have done, but it's rare that someone actually goes out and does it. So this week's guest saw a need for well-written books for children of color that was not being met and set out to change that. With his own publishing company and his drive to not only be successful, but educate the next generation of young minds, Allan Jackson is someone that Brownstone is happy to not only introduce, but celebrate. We hope that you're as inspired by Ty's story and efforts as we are. So let's go.
I guess let's start off at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and then ultimately what led you to want to be an author and a publisher.
So, well, my name is Allan Jackson, and I'm very proud to be a children's book author, and it's something I never aspired to be, and it all pretty much happened by happenstance. And it happened about 7 years ago when my son was 6 years old, and on a hot summer's day in Massachusetts, he said, "Dad, can we open up a lemonade stand?" And I'm originally from the Bronx, and lemonade stands couldn't be more of a foreign concept when you live in the Bronx. But as living in Western Massachusetts now, it's very commonplace. So me and my son, we get on the corner and get a cardboard box and a pitcher of lemonade and little cups and umbrellas and stuff like that. And in 3 hours, this really cute little kid made $50 selling lemonade, which completely blew my mind. And then he asked, "Dad, what am I going to do with all this money?" And honestly, I really had no idea. I wasn't prepared to have a, in-depth conversation with my son about money. I'm thinking we'll just make $5-6, go get some ice cream and call it a day. But $50 is, a whole new conversation. So I go to Barnes & Noble and to see if I could find a book to help me teach my son about money and entrepreneurship and finance. And there were no books on the shelves, and there were definitely very few books in general featuring children of color, any color, but especially with a little brown boy in the cover. There was just nothing there, and that's how really the whole idea came about. And I left that bookstore frustrated and a little angry about the lack of diversity in children's books. And I sat in my car, and the name Danny Dollar just popped into my head, and I went home and I started writing the story. It took 1.5 years for me to get the story the way I wanted to, and then I started pitching it out to agents. And I pitched it out to 150 agents from New York to California, and I was rejected by every single one. So I figured either I'm going to scrap this project or I'm going to figure out how to do it myself. And it took another year to figure out how to publish a book. And I started my company. It's titled Big Head Books, and I now have 5 publications under our belt, 4 written by me. And now I tour the country and teach children about the importance of reading and literacy. I've sold tens of thousands of copies of my books, and I couldn't be happier.
So did you come from a background of like an English major, or was authorship just something that you stumbled into?
I've never set foot on a college campus until I took my daughter to her college for the first time, so I don't have a degree in literature. I've always been an avid reader. Ever since I was a baby, my mother would read to me religiously, and that developed me into being a ferocious reader. And there's always a book by my night table. I'm always reading, even if it's just for a few minutes every day. So I never aspired to be a writer. In fact, in high school, English by far wasn't on the top of the list of my favorite subjects. But again, I've always loved to read, and I didn't discover my passion for writing until I actually started writing, and then I realized how much I loved it, and now it's become pretty much what I do for a living. And again, I couldn't be more thrilled. I think I think that all of us in life have a purpose, and I feel sad that some people go to their grave without knowing what their purpose is. And I would even be bold enough to say that writing probably isn't my purpose, but communicating and inspiring children is, and writing is just the avenue in which that I do it.
Now you got to tell me a little bit about the name of the company. How did you come up with Big Head Books?
That's a great question. Despite my physical appearance, it is not because I have a big head, although I do have a big head. It actually was spawned again by my son, and also, but more importantly, my daughter. When they were very little, my son, the same child who inspired me to write this story, would tease his younger sister and telling her that she had a big head, and it would make her very upset. And she would go on days in and day out, just like siblings do, and say, "Oh, you have a big head," and she would get upset. So one day he says to her, "Hey, you big head," and then she thinks about it, and she says, "You know what? If I have a big head, that means I have a big brain, which means I'm smarter than you. So you can call me a big head all you want." And after that, he stopped calling her a big head. But I thought that was so inspiring that this little girl took something that was a negative and turned it into a positive. And I loved that idea and that concept, and that was really the origin of the name of the company.
Now, I saw on the website that you're doing something kind of unusual, and I think personally very inspiring. Can you tell me a little bit about the Families United Through Love of Literacy?
I would be honored to. My business partner, Eddie Taylor, came on board with Big Head Books about a year after its conception. And he discovered something, being a unbelievable civic leader, noticed the lack of men in our community and wondered where they were. And lo and behold, we figured out a lot of them had been incarcerated. So he stumbled across these two statistics, and it's really these two statistics are the foundation of the full program. First one is that 2 out of 3 children who cannot read proficiently by the 4th grade will be incarcerated or on welfare. I get chills every time I hear that stat. It really shows the importance of literacy and why we must educate and inspire our children to read. But to coincide with that statistic, 75% of all teenagers who go through the juvenile system are functionally illiterate. So it tells you that if they can't read by the 4th grade, that their future, that they are destined to go to jail, because 75% of all kids can't read. So those statistics are so chilling to me that this program was created by my brother Eddie. It's an amazing program. We have in the state of Massachusetts somewhere between 40 to 60% recidivism of people who've gone to jail return. We've done almost 500 participants in the full program, and at this point, our recidivism rate is at 8%. We are at 8% recidivism for the people that have participated. The biggest reason is we don't just talk to them about the importance and value of reading. We compile that with the level of parenthood and that role that they play in the lives of their families, specifically their children, even though they may be incarcerated. So although that they may not be able to connect with them directly, indirectly they can still have an effect and be of benefit to the welfare of their children by this program, which we videotape them after 3 sessions of empowerment and education. We videotape them, sending a DVD and a customized book to their families, and the DVD has them reading my picture book when I close my eyes, and it's very inspiring for them. They also get an opportunity to tell their loved ones how much they mean to them, and it's a very powerful program. The statistics of 8% recidivism speaks for itself. We believe that this program is instrumental for them getting back home, being parents perhaps for the first time, really involved parents for the first time, but also to becoming thriving members back in their community and realize that their value is on the outside and not on the inside.
Now, was there initially a problem or kind of a struggle getting the buy-in? How do you convince the inmates that this is something worthwhile?
At first, the first few sessions, it was a little awkward. These parents are very standoffish being inside prison walls. They can be very callous but after the first couple of sessions, and guys really realized, and as my brother Eddie likes to say, is that this program is not about you. It is about your family. It is about the one common thing that we all as men, but we also, even though we've done women as well, but as fathers that we all have, is that we love our children. So when we add that component to them and tell them the statistics, because the one thing that we all have as parents is the innate nurturing nature to take care and protect our children, regardless of, how strong that we are and tough on the outside. We are all parents, and that innate nature, I think, allows them to put aside their tough guy image and persona and do the things that are necessary, especially under their circumstances, to benefit the lives of their children. The last thing that they want is for their child to end up where they ended up. So the buy-in is really quite immediate. Upon the first session, they do walk in. They do think it's, they have that tough guy persona. But after Eddie and I talked to them for a few minutes about why we're doing this program and its value, everything changes, and it becomes a really amazing, unified program where we are all united under the same mission, and that's to empower and support our children.
Now, I notice a lot of your efforts are directed towards children and increasing literacy. Through conversations I've had with other people and observations of my own, do you see at some point, and I haven't been able to pinpoint exactly where, there seems to become almost a disdain for reading past the blogs or a website or the occasional magazine. Where do you think we're losing the youth?
It's several components. One is what we promote and what we don't promote. And in this country, all you need to do is turn on the radio or television, and you will be inundated with from misogynistic words and images to guns and violence. And all you got to do is look at the top video games that are in this country, and they're bang bang, shoot 'em up, beat 'em up violence. All you need to do is turn on the radio, and all it does is disrespect our women and dumb us down as a community. So we're constantly inundated with negative images, and to coincide with that, no one promotes literacy. No one promotes books. And I ask your listeners, can you please tell me the last time that you saw a commercial for a book? You may have seen one or two in your lifetime. Yet, you can turn on, there's Game of War or whatever video games that are out there every other hour, especially now with the holiday season about. So we as a culture, as a society, as a country, deem those things of value, and we place them up there for the world to see, and it's been to the detriment of our culture and our society. We are the highest in crime, we are the highest in incarceration, and we are 24th in literacy. So that tells you all you need to know. In the United States of America, we are number one in incarceration by a lot. We incarcerate. I'm trying to think of the statistics, but we are 4 times higher than the next state in incarceration its citizens. Yet we are 24th in the country in literacy. And what I like to say is that we cannot be a superpower if our children cannot spell superpower. There's something wrong where we suppress our children and don't promote reading, don't promote literacy. For example, there are over 8,000 Barnes and Nobles in the country. I don't see commercials for them. There are over 8,000, about the same amount of Wendy's restaurants in the United States. I could turn on my television right now and see a Wendy's commercial. So there's something wrong about how it is that we're projecting and promoting what our priorities are in America.
That's powerful, and I don't think it's something that should be taken lightly. Anecdotally, I met a woman recently who told me she went on a date with a young man who proudly stated, "I don't read," and to her credit, she ended the date right then.
Yeah,
she
good for her.
Be with the man who chose ignorance, if you will.
Yeah, I get it, and I could like to take it a step further as a man of color, and this is remarkably important because I talked about the literacy rates in the country. 64% of the prisons in America are filled with people of who are diverse. To coincide with that, and I talked about promoting literacy, 93% of all books in America only feature Caucasian characters. That leaves 7% left for diverse people, and that's total. So there's only 3% for African Americans, 1.5% for Asians, 1% for Native Americans, 1% for Latinos. I mean, this is where we are as a country. We have a black president. So you would think that we would have made greater strides in all aspects of life, especially something as vital to the welfare of our country than literacy. Think about it. If you can't read, you can't fill out a job application, and if you can't get, then you can't get employment. You can't get employment. You can't take care of your family. What are you going to do? You're going to do the things that are necessary for you to get, to take care of your life, and in most cases, that's commit crimes. So the fact that there's such a lack of diversity in children's books, I mean, think about it. 7%. That's all there is. That's all. Go to and I challenge your readers. I mean, your listeners. I challenge you. Go to your local bookstore and go look in the children's book section. You can count the amount of books that feature a child of color, any color, on one hand. And I guarantee you that the majority of them will not be books that your child of color will want to read. There will be books that are historical or cultural in nature. For example, I took my son to the bookstore one day, and the only book I could find that featured a child of color was about Barack Obama. And my son, very intelligently said, "Dad, why do I have to read about Barack Obama or Muhammad Ali or Jackie Robinson? My friends don't read about Babe Ruth or George Washington or John F. Kennedy. They read fun books. I want to read fun books. Where are the fun books with children who look like me?" They don't exist. And that is why it is so vital for the work that it is that we do to promote these books that are contemporary and fun. And the great thing about Big Head Books and my books is that even though they feature child of color, they're not for children of color. There is no reference to my characters like Danny Dollar living in the hood or coming from a single, or whatever stereotypical things you want to put for children of color. They just happen to be children of color just going through modern everyday life. And that's why we've been as successful as we've been and been adaptable to every culture that there is, because our books speak to every single person in this country, in this world.
So if I'm a parent out there looking to expand my child's education, to move forward from what the schools are spoon-feeding, where can they find your books?
My books are available primarily at my website, bigheadbooks.com. They can also be found on my Amazon page. All you have to do is search Ty Allan Jackson, and that's Allan. Most people seem to spell it Allen. But I'm also in several Barnes & Nobles across the country, and if you go to your local Barnes & Nobles and I'm not there, please ask them to put the books from Ty Allan Jackson on their shelf, specifically Danny Dollar, which talks to our children about something that is not taught in schools. And that's money, and that's finance, and that's entrepreneurship. And I think it's very telling that in our elementary schools that financial literacy is not taught. I think you have to scratch your head a little bit about that. We teach them things of historical nature in which most of them, specifically towards people of color, are not true, but we don't teach them about money. I think there's something, I have a conspiracy theory about that I won't go into, but I think that's very telling. So those are the avenues which you can find my book. And I also like to tell your listeners that I will be doing a TED Talk about the lack of diversity in children's books on December, and how it trickles down to mass incarceration in America on December 3rd. So please be on the lookout for that TED Talk in the very near future.
And then I just want to finish up with one last thing. What are the goals for Big Head Books? Where should we anticipate seeing you in the next 5 years?
That's a great question. I don't like to think of myself as an author. I like to think of myself as an advocate for literacy, and our goals are really to bring to the forefront the importance and the value and the joy of reading. We got the holiday season coming up, and we're gonna give our kids everything under the sun. There needs to be a book under that. Every single child in America should, on top of the video games and the electronics, you need to put one book in that compartment. And even it means you have to upload the book on the iPad that you're giving them, and that's fine too. And I'm proud to say that all my books are also available as e-readers. So that's something that we have to do. Until we stand up and take charge of our culture and our communities, then we're just going to continue to recycle the same dysfunctional nature. Reading is not a chore. It's not a punishment for you to give your child a book and sit them in the corner and tell them to be quiet. It is the greatest form of entertainment there is. It enhances our imagination and stimulates our intelligence. And it shouldn't be something that's cast aside or viewed as some form of punishment. So we want to be featured as advocates for literacy. We're hoping to visit every single school in America, which I do on a consistent basis. I'll be in Florida next month promoting the importance of reading to several schools. So I want to push out more books. I want to get in front of more children, tell them why reading is so important and so valued. And I personally would love to be the household name for children's books, a children's book author of color. And another thing I challenge your listeners is, can you name a children's book author of color? You can go Dr. Seuss and Eric Hall, but you can't name one of color. I would love to be that name.